On guys, Richie Schnyderite here, the Knight Report. I'm joined by one of our recruiting writers, Alex Gleitman. Alex, what's up, man? How's everything going?
It's going great. Good day for Rutgers football. So that's always a good thing. Puts
Yeah,
us in a good mood. Fans are happy. So, yeah, it's great to be here.
yeah. So let's jump right into things. Moses Walker, 4-star, rivals 1 or 250. I guess technically the 160 ranked recruit in the country. Huge get. Just break it down a little bit. How big of a get is this for the Scarlet Knights?
Yeah, absolutely huge get. I mean, you talk about Rutgers when Greg Schiano came in, and to compete on the field, they had to compete on the recruiting trail. And it wasn't just beating out Temple or UConn for recruits. First step was beating out the Purdue's, the Michigan States, the Minnesotas, the Iowas, kind of those middle level Big Ten teams. And I think Rutgers has done a really good job the last couple of cycles of competing with and beating those teams for recruits. But this one, they went head to head with Penn State, and make no mistake about it, Penn State, James Franklin, his staff, they really wanted Moses Walker. They
Mm.
thought they had a solid chance after the visit. They thought that maybe they moved the needle a little bit, but Greg Schiano and his relationship with Danny Lamberg at Erasmus Hall and how that's translated to his relationship with Moses Walker, as well as the work the rest of the staff did and making him feel comfortable, obviously having 4 or 5 guys from that program on campus, having a bunch of guys from New York City. That just won out at the end of the day for Rutgers with Moses Walker. And so to me, this was absolutely a huge win. This is a kid who Penn State, who traditionally has one of the best defenses in the country, let alone the Big Ten, wanted. So instead of playing against him for 4 years, you get to have him as a weapon to try to beat Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, all those teams for 4 years.
Mm.
So just a huge win for Rutgers at the end of the day.
Yeah. So you just mentioned it before. He took an official visit to Penn State on the 25th of June, I believe it was. But instead of going straight home after a visit, he stopped at Rutgers for an unofficial right before the dead period. How much of a factor do you think that played in?
I don't know if that played much of a factor. I think
Mm.
to some extent it kind of was just like, hey, let me take one last look. I really had a great time at Penn State. Maybe I'm feeling some things after this visit. Let me get to Rutgers and see how I feel after that. So maybe it did a little bit, but I think no matter what, even if he didn't make that trip, when all the emotions of visits settle down and you sit down with your family, your coaches, whoever it is that's going to help you make those decisions, I think Rutgers would have been the place because for me, it's comfort and relationships, and Rutgers won both of those categories with him. So I don't think it was much of a factor, but couldn't have hurt for sure.
Yeah. So I think right now he's listed at, I want to say around 190, 195 maybe. Is he going to be able to pack on a couple pounds and be that outside linebacker presence?
Yeah, his head coach Danny Lamberg actually told me that he weighed in at 218,
Oh, okay. So he's a lot more now.
standing at 6'2". So yeah,
Yeah.
he said that change physically has been the
Mm.
biggest difference that he's seen from Moses year over year, and what he saw in the spring was, I think Danny was not 1,000% sure of how good of a prospect Moses was. I think,
Yeah.
and seeing him this spring, he said he was just a different player physically, mentally, and he
Mm.
feels confident that he could play it anywhere in the country. He threw out Ohio State, Alabama. He said,
Mm.
it's almost lucky for Rutgers to some extent that those programs didn't get a close look at him this summer at camps or on the field and weren't able to come out and evaluate him because he might have had a few other suitors for his services, but he's the real
Yeah.
deal.
So I know obviously my fault. Anyway, so I know obviously he's a pretty big prospect. I don't want to compare him to the E Hall guys because you kind of already did that in your article. You posted it today with the coach speak with Danny Lamberg and all that. But if you had to compare him to someone that you've seen in the past or someone that you've covered, who would you say he's the most like?
Man, that's tough off the cuff. I have to think
I
about it,
know
but
that's what I figured.
I could just say like he is big and physical. When you look at him, I mean, even when he was
Mm.
weighing in those 190s, he looked like a dude. Like you saw him, he passes the eye test for sure.
Mm.
And, adding the extra weight, but still maintaining his quickness and having those instincts.
Mm.
He's just a really, really good player. And I see him as an outside linebacker for Rutgers because he's a guy who I think, yeah, he could stuff the run, but he can also run side to side,
Yeah.
sideline to sideline. He can, cover. He can blitz off the edge. He could really do it all. So uh, I think he's a guy who I don't want to compare him to anyone specifically. I think I want to see him first again and then think
Mm.
about it a little bit more. But I think when you talk about what you're getting from him, he's a guy who you're looking at. Maybe he's not starting in year one just because they do have some talent on the roster, but
Mhm.
I wouldn't be shocked if he's starting in year 2 and year 3. And you're possibly talking about him as an early NFL type of guy after year 3. But
Thanks.
I see him as a multi-year starter for Rutgers and possible all Big Ten type of player.
Mhm. So it's pretty obviously that E Hall has been a powerhouse, I guess, in New York City at this point. How big is it to get him and to keep that kind of pipeline going?
Oh, it's huge. And, Greg Schiano and Danny Lamberg have a tremendous relationship, and that's going to help Rutgers moving forward. But he's just not going to hand kids over to Rutgers, right? They have to do the work and they have to prove it. And I think
Yeah.
what Danny spoke about to me in that article was just being around yes, the comfort of knowing there's guys from New York City and from Erasmus Hall at Rutgers, but just being around them, seeing how happy those guys were with their
Mhm.
decision to be at Rutgers, and just the feeling and the vibe they have about the direction the program's going and how they're being used within the program. Even the guys who don't play a ton or maybe necessarily start, Kassan Abraham, I think he's going to have a role this year, but he's not sure and away starting cornerback for
Mhm.
Rutgers. Obviously, unlike guys like Christian Izian and Aaron Cruikshank are. So I think and Tunde Fadukasi is also not a starter yet. And just seeing how happy all those guys are, I think that played a huge role. And so I think getting a big time talent like Moses picking Rutgers over Penn State, it's going to show the future guys. And they got a lot of really good young players that I think are going to get Rutgers offers. It's going to
Mhm.
show them that just because, you're big time and may have some offers from some of those top programs, you can go to Rutgers and you can excel and you can be really happy there.
So last one I got for you, you just kind of mentioned it a little bit. E Hall's got a bunch of young dudes. Who are some of these young guys that people should keep an eye on?
Yeah, I think when you talk about 2023, Cottrell White, defensive back,
Mhm.
Jerry Colclough, who's kind of an athlete, but
Mhm.
he's a little smaller. We'll see how big he gets, but I think he can absolutely play at that D1 level. And then Vinny Cajano, who's the quarterback.
Mhm.
I really liked him when I saw him as a freshman. Didn't get to see him this spring, but looking forward to seeing him in the fall. I think he's developed really nicely. I think he's going to be one of the better quarterbacks in the area for 2023. I know there are a few. So those are a few guys, but I think the class that you should get really excited about
Mhm.
are the 2024 kids. And I know it's crazy to talk about that, but Caden Brown, who's a defensive end for Erasmus Hall, also could be a ridiculous wide receiver.
Yeah.
Danny thinks he could be the best player to ever come out of that program. When you talk about guys like
Wow.
Curtis Samuel and Matt Jones went to Ohio State, Wayne Morgan at Syracuse, Deontay Roberts at Rutgers,
Mhm.
Apache Mohan, who went to Michigan, now at Tennessee, Josiah Harris, who signed with Texas A&M. I mean, you could just go on and on
Yeah.
about the talent they produce. Obviously, all the guys at Rutgers, and they think that he has a chance to be the best player that's ever come out of there. Aris Bethea, who's the younger brother of Arizona
Mhm.
State signee Armand Bethea, two-way lineman. I'm not sure which side of the line he's going to end up on just
Okay.
yet. Right now, maybe thinking defensive tackle, but I think he could easily be an offensive lineman. That's a guy who Rutgers is certainly going to go after. And then there's another 2024 kid who just transferred in from Christ the King, Jalen Ballou, a
Mhm.
tight end. He's absolutely the real deal, and he should get a Rutgers look. So those three guys in 2024 are absolutely elite type guys who will get some of the best offers in the country. And
Mhm.
those are the guys Rutgers fans should be excited about potentially getting and changing the trajectory of the program for years to come.
Yeah, I know a couple of them are planning on being at Rutgers at the end of the month once this dead period's over for that annual barbecue event. But anyway, Alex, thanks for taking the time. Appreciate it as always. And guys, stay tuned on the Night Report. Alex has the Inside the Banks piece every week. Just check it out, and that's all I got.